Hi, everybody. Hi. So that was a fun transition. I got hustled backstage. It was pretty cool. All right. So what do you guys think of this session title, huh? Throws down the gauntlet in a big way, right? Promises nerdery on an epic scale, which also often actually completely falls flat, even at data conferences. I can't believe how little sci-fi jokes go over at these data conferences. I'm like what's the deal here? This is a data conference, right? You know. All right, so there's your title. Okay. Okay, so let's start off with a couple of definitions. You know, straight from Wikipedia. Dark matter, the hypothetical substance is believed basically to comprise most of the weight of the mass of the universe, but we can't see it. We can see its effect. We can see it like it dragging other planets and bending light and all kinds of things. So we know it's there, but we can't see it, hence dark, okay? Dark matter, it's always been a fascinating concept for amateur physicists, of which, I guess I'm one, And then, of course, Vulcans, okay? The fictional extraterrestrial humanoid species in Star Trek. I really like the noted for their attempt to live by reason and logic, with no interference at all from emotion, right? That's a good, right? It's a good thing to have in data, to be completely emotionless, right? If you could manage that. I got one more definition here, also from Wikipedia, that I'd like for you to read to yourselves quietly. I'm not going to read this one to you, okay? We can gauge various people's reading speed by when the chuckles start, right? Or whether or not they find it funny. It's a multivariable problem. You can't. Okay, so yes, there is a deep, dark secret hiding in this presentation. It's only hiding until we get to it, it turns out. Seriously, if you know these secrets, it'll give you a completely unfair advantage. And everyone loves an unfair advantage as long as it's theirs, right? So that's what we're here for, is to make things unfair. Okay, so let's start off with credibility. Why even, what makes me qualified to even talk about self-service BI and the industry trends and all of that, Well, we start off by saying, hey, I worked at Microsoft for 14 years. I worked on this stuff. I worked on Excel. I worked on Power Pivot a little bit, worked on a lot of traditional BI at Microsoft as well. But I think, sitting in your shoes, it's just as fair to say, well, that's a reason not to trust you, Rob, right? You worked for that company. And plus, you should also, I view myself as a recovering software engineer, okay? That's something, software engineers, to really be good at it, you almost have to cut yourself off from the rest of the world. It's so absorbing. So now that I'm out in the real world, I'm like, I'm atoning for all of the sins of my past. So let's not go with that as a reason to trust me. I've written a book and co-authored 2 others. 2 of the 3 seem to sell pretty well. Alchemy, for some reason, hasn't sold hardly at all. People really like the other 2 books, though. They seem to. But again, I don't think that really... That doesn't qualify me as some sort of industry trend, observer. All that shows is that I can learn a tool set and write about it, okay? But the field trip, okay? My 6-year ongoing field trip, right? It's longer than the 5-year mission of the Starship Enterprise. I left Redmond in really late 2009. So it's going to be 7 years at some point soon. I've been out in the real world, and let me tell you, the real world is a fascinating place. Not at all what I expected after being in school my whole life and then going to Microsoft for 14 years, which is really just kind of like a continuation of school in a way. First time as a real citizen of the world was 2010 when I was 35 years old. Wow, this place is neat. This is the thing. Most people, at least in the United States these days, are averaging about 4.5 years working for the same employer. So if you do the math, That would be about 10 employers over the course of a 45-year career. 4.5 years is really a long time. It's more than enough for you to really kind of forget the texture of the places you worked before. And this leads to a very interesting phenomenon. If you're someone like me who's worked with hundreds of companies, we crisscross, our company crisscrosses, it's not just me anymore, okay? We got the team of data ninjas at Power Pivot Pro. We help a lot of people in a lot of places. It's funny how people talk to us. Like, everyone is always so confessional with us. Like, yeah, we really suck. We don't do it right at this company at all. Like, we're a mess. We're like, it's the same story we heard yesterday. There's nothing wrong with you, right? The whole world is like this, right? Like, everyone everywhere is broken when it comes to data. And I am shocked at this. I did not expect this in the least, but it's the truth. Big companies have big problems. Small companies have small problems. The problem scales up really nicely with the size of the company, it turns out. And so, yeah, I mean, like, we spend a lot of time in the industry talking about, like, the next new hot big thing, okay? And, like, honestly, like, we haven't done the basics yet, folks. Like, seriously, the basics are not working the way they're supposed to, not even remotely. And that's the next frontier, okay, is really getting the basics done. Okay? That's what we like. And we can set a high bar for the basics, but it is basics. All right. So, mentioned this in the last talk as well. For those of you who are carryovers, you're going to have to just, sit through it again. First mover advantage. I actually think, and this isn't just some arbitrary thing. We could argue about it, but I'm pretty convinced of it, that with the new tools, the new things that have been invested in Excel and the sort of its cousin Power BI, we're standing at the edge of an advantage. Imagine if you're back in the early 1980s and you were one of the first people to adopt spreadsheets, okay? One of the first individuals or one of the first companies. That would have been a tremendous competitive advantage, to be on the, part of that gold rush, right? I wasn't around in the business world back then. I was using my Apple II for other things. Games, pirated games is what I was using it for. Not writing games, just stealing them. Anyway, so, but that would have been a tremendous advantage. I think that there's as much advantage available to us now adopting this stuff as there was back then. Right? Absolutely, like I said, unfair, devastating advantage. And so here are the stories. How many of you were in the last talk? Okay, so there's half of us. Anything less than 100%, I got to do the slide again. Sorry. But this is a great slide, so I don't mind. I don't mind doing this. So this is a list of projects that our company has done in the last couple of years. We went one place where they had been grinding for 18 months on the same thing. Hired 4 different consulting firms, very expensive consulting firms. They spent 6 figures on this problem with nothing to show for it. Right? Just throw away work, throw away time, throw away money. And I'll be honest with you, I think they really just tried us because they didn't have anything to lose. Right? They weren't convinced that we were going to be able to do it, right? But they were like, well, we're way in. The pot odds are deep now. And you guys, Power Pivot Pro, you're telling us that you don't even really want to be there for a full week. You don't think it's going to take that long. And so you're going to be cheap. So even if if you guys just completely, go up in smoke, we're kind of exactly where we are today. Okay? But we were done in a week. 1 week we were done. Sent one person, it was me, okay? But this happens a lot. This is a monster company, okay? You all know this company, trust me. Okay, so major retailer out west. Okay, I am out west right now. Geographical sense. If only I had the geocoded maps, Anyway, so they had spent about a year and a half, month at a time, converting some of their stores, sort of like slowly working through their chain, converting some of their stores, doing some light construction work to change the product mix that they sell. with the idea that it would increase the bottom line, right? That's why you would do such a thing. But it got in their heads. It started this sort of like viral infection got in their heads that it might actually be hurting sales. It might be hurting the bottom line. They didn't know, right? Which is, again, basics, right? But incredibly common that we don't know. Incredibly common. So in 4 hours, we've very conclusively proved that this was adding $5 million a year to the bottom line, this construction. It was going to cost them $3 million just to go and deconvert the stores, to reverse the construction cost, right? So if you just take the first year, $3 million plus $5 million, it was $2 million an hour in ROI. It's not often that you can find that kind of ratio, right? Working with one company, on the second day, just found $14 million hiding under a rock. And it was discounts, $14 million in discounts that they gave to their customers in the previous year in a category and location that the customers don't even notice the discounts, don't care. Okay? It's just $14 million they can just go recoup next year, right? No, not you can't claw it back. That would be nice. But yeah, they can probably get away with some percentage of not paying those discounts the next year. 3 people part-time for a month, 1 person from our company, 2 people from the client. Stock price. Just move the stock price upward of that company. I hear that's a good thing. This is my favorite. 1 week, 2 people, 1 from us, 1 from the client. Remember now, we're building a workbook. Okay, this is a Power Pivot workbook that we built, industrial strength workbook, modern Excel workbook, not your father's Oldsmobile, okay? The new Excel, that thing is generating $25 million in savings a year, over and over and over again.
So do you charge them $12 million?
See, this is the thing. The problem with being a nerd is that you're really good at the tech and you just suck at business, right?
Is the world a better place, or are you not too bright?
I think I don't know that there's a sharp dividing line between those two for me. But yeah, I mean, at some point we'll just start working for free and a percentage of what we find you, and we won't get paid 3 times out of 4, but the 4th time we'll make up for it. But we're not that courageous yet, I don't think. So these are all real. Okay, can't tell you who they are. You'd recognize a lot of them. Can't tell you though. But those all happened, and they all happened because of this stuff. Right? And again, if you know the secret, right, you're well on your way to being able to do the same sorts of things. All right, so in the past, when you wanted to turn data into information, and remember, data is not information. People say all the time, let's go look at the data. Well, you can't. The joke I used last night, you can't just go stare at the database, right? Like there's the server, right? We're looking at the data. You've got to do some crunching, right? You've got to digest it, and that's why we're here. You've had 2 really high-level choices. You could go to a team of experts, a very small team of experts, that are experts in very expensive and arcane tools. They go by many different names, but business intelligence is one of the big ones. Many, many billions of dollars spent every year on high-end, arcane business intelligence software. This is a long-running industry. And Microsoft has been a player in that traditional BI industry as well. Right? So I'm not just picking on other vendors, but also Microsoft's previous wave of BI products. So you could go with those people and those tools, or there's a large number of people who know how to use Excel. Okay? And those are really your two options, and have been for a long time. Well, hey, you can have it one way or the other. You want it robust, or do you want it fast? Can't have both. Sorry. Okay? And the world overwhelmingly chooses fast, over and over and over again, right? Not that BI doesn't happen. It absolutely does. It's just that the vast majority of data crunching and information producing is Excel, not traditional BI. Even in places where you have traditional BI, it's still overwhelmingly Excel. All right, so what would we want to do? We would love to have this happen, right? Robust meets fast, okay? And that's what we've got, okay? This is where Power Pivot lives, okay? This is where Power BI lives. And then the next click is where I deliberately antagonize an old friend who I see sitting in the audience. There's also, unfortunately, a bunch of other tools in this space that are very expensive, that are not Microsoft. But all of the lessons and learnings that I have to share with you today, I think they're basically relevant across all of the self-serve BI tools. Because it's not really about the technology. It's much more about the people. With Excel still being a devastating advantage with the people, right? Anyway, so obviously this is where you want to be, right? You want to be at the intersection of robust and fast. Yeah? Yes. Yeah. Everyone agrees? Yes. All right, well then we're done, okay? End of talk. All right, make sure to fill out your evaluations. This actually isn't the end. This is a picture of the end, right? We're going to, dirty trick, huh? You can screenshot the end and put it in a slide deck. Look at that reality distortion that just happened there. All right, so let's understand traditional BI first. We need to look at both sides of the coin. We need to go a little bit deeper so that we get this. Okay? So let's look at some traditional BI panes. And hey, we're data people, so we'll look at the numbers, Wow, okay, so these are old metrics, but there's no reason to suspect that they've changed because the old tools haven't changed, the old methodologies haven't changed. 17 months is the average duration of a BI project. Right? What's the average time that a problem or a question remains relevant in business? It's certainly not, it's less than 17 months, right? It's like, delivering yesterday's information tomorrow, right, is what this industry's been doing forever. 31% project success rate, and I think that's polite. I really do. You know why I think it's polite? It's because in all of my travels, I still haven't found the project that was a success. Right? Not once. Oh, quiet. Right? But seriously, if we're honest with ourselves, it's never a success. Right? So I don't know where the 31%. I think it's just basic humanity saying, I don't want to tell the truth about the emperor's no clothes. And then, if you find all this controversial, there's a more recent stats, 5.8 to 6.9 business days to add a single column to a single existing report. Wow. Wow, we've really got our standards set high, haven't we, folks? Right? Like in ideal conditions, and we have the right to expect ideal conditions, that's a checkbox, okay? One click should be all it takes to add a stinking column to a stinking report. But it takes a week and a half for it to grind through the process. Also not acceptable. Right? Basics, we're failing at the basics. Okay. All right. So where does all that time go? This is where we start to round the corner towards dark matter. We round the corner towards the secret. So let's say we could go find, that one project. Okay. That was a success. We'll go find the BI project that was a smashing success. Okay. We'll track that one down. And we'll analyze that one, okay? So if it's a 17-month average project, let's assume that on net that consumes about 3 people. It'll be a lot more people than that, but slices of people, not physical slices. But chunks of people's time. We'll call it 3 people for the project. I think it's a pretty modest number to assume. 51 person months. And if we factor in vacations and all of that, we come up with about 1,000 person days of effort that goes into this 17-month project. Okay, isn't this neat? We're doing math at a data talk, right? And spam phone call. Right? Okay, so I did some research on sort of like average project sizes. I could be off on this by probably a single order of magnitude. So the average iPhone app apparently has about 900 pages of code in it. I think the average BI project in the end has less moving parts than that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 900 as well. Maybe it's a little bit less. It doesn't really make much difference once you see where this goes. Okay? But let's start with 300 pages. If you could print out the 300 pages of code, script, logic, whatever it was, that went into that successful unicorn of a BI project, okay, and then give it to a programmer or even just the stenographer, okay, and say, here's the 300 pages of the code, just type it, retype it, okay? And as long as they were able to sustain their interest in this incredible menial task, okay, which they couldn't, but let's assume that they could for a moment, typing at about 12 pages an hour, in 4 days they'd be done typing the whole thing. Okay? And that's 0.4% of the elapsed time of the project measured in person days. Right? So, and what's even more fascinating to me is to think about it a little bit differently, which is in the course of this mythical successful project, that typing happened, okay? Like, yeah, there was some typing of the wrong code and then this other stuff and then tearing it out and changing it and all of that. But at some point in that time frame, this actually happened, in little chunks here and there. It all adds up, okay? And that's how long typing the right code takes. So we talk about it saying like, yeah, it's taken a really long time to get this project done, really long time to get the work done. Like, by saying that, we're hiding the reality. The work is nothing. The work is really nothing. Okay? So what's the rest of it? If we put this in perspective, okay, the actual typing of the right code, everything else is, this is where the dark matter comes in, the thing we don't really see, we don't really account for, okay, is all of the communication. Tremendous, overwhelming communication cost. Okay? Meetings, emails, phone calls, arguments, okay? Iteration. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. I told you something different. What are you talking about? Misunderstandings, all kinds of stuff. This is where the time goes. This is also true of software too. Software projects are the same way. Actually typing the code, if you knew the code, wouldn't take very long. Okay? This is fascinating, though, because it also shows us that, well, if 99.6%, and hey, go ahead, triple the code count. Bring up the work to 1 whole percent, okay? Right? Like, I don't think what I'm saying is cheapened if you do that, right? So that also means that the opportunity to speed things up, the opportunity to make things more efficient, more effective, is by attacking the communication cost, not by thinking in terms of the software. If the software can help you with the communication cost, okay, now we're going somewhere. But don't evaluate the software. Right? A slightly better engine or a better charting machine or whatever is not going to move the needle on your business. Right? But getting that communication cost down will. All right, so that's part one of the secret. Here we are with we're summarizing it, putting it in your face. And this, when I present this idea, this concept in a BI audience, like a traditional BI audience, it tends to make people really angry at me. Like I get some really, I don't know if it's hostile, but some cold stares, some poor reactions. And I don't really know why they're so angry at me. Like, would they rather me say that they type really slowly, right? Like, would they rather me say that they don't understand the technology that they're using? I mean, anything else I could say would be more insulting, right? Right? If their project takes 17 months, right? If it takes 7 days to put a column on a report, right? This is the most charitable interpretation possible of that, right? Okay, so, but really no one should be offended, no one should be ashamed, no one should feel guilty, okay? This is just human beings. Like, no one is failing. The software, the old software, is doing this to you. Okay? This is something that the software industry, has done to humanity. There are problems on sending and receiving, for requirements. Like I tell you the requirements, I miscommunicate them. You misunderstand them, right? Both sides equally flawed, okay? There's a huge iteration delay, a lot of waiting in this stuff. I tell you what I need, and then you go disappear into your cave, the BI person, and crunch, and come back and show me something, and I discover, yeah, that's not what we wanted at all, again, right? But we spend so much time grinding. And this is my favorite one. Even when we transmit the requirements perfectly, I transmit them with perfect clarity, you understand them, BI person understands them with perfect clarity, they're still screwed, okay? They're still bad because this is something I want you to internalize deeply, okay? Human beings do not know what they need until they have seen what they asked for. Okay? I did not know this or understand this when I was working at Microsoft, but I have been educated the hard way now. Okay? And the corollary to this is that forget it. You're never going to like write a specification ahead of time, go execute on it, and be done. That's a lie we've been telling ourselves forever. In Tom Phelan's talk earlier today, he went one step further and said, so what we're going to do is, and how we did it at Tyco, if you were at his talk this morning, he said, we went and built it, and then we wrote the requirements. Right? Because we went around and socialized it, right? Got feedback on something real and tangible, and then acted on that and iterated quickly. I made the mistake last night when I did a dry run of this of saying 100% airtight, no exception. Again, I should allow for that 1% case. But like, I encourage you to invert that expectation completely. Just like Tom said. Just go build something, right? And get feedback on that, because these tools move fast enough to do it that way. The old tools didn't. There's no way you could do the build and then write requirements with the old tools. The new tools you can. And the sooner you break yourselves and humanity breaks themselves of this really silly habit of thinking, you will always, right, the truth is you will always have iteration. The processes and tools have never been built with that understanding until recently. There will always be iteration. Okay, I promised you Vulcans. And Vulcans there will be, okay? So in fairness, right, there are circumstances, like if you had a Vulcan, okay, if you just had a Vulcan on your team, you could pull off BI, right? You could do it, right? You would come to an understanding without this tremendous communication cost, what really happens in a BI project is you both end up educating the heck out of each other on things neither one of you ever wanted to know. But until we have Vulcans, right? When did we make first contact? I forget. It's a few hundred years still, right? Anyway. Didn't you guys read the first slide? You have to laugh at all of Rob's sci-fi jokes or no unfair advantage for you. All right. So let's turn the corner. Let's understand Excel from the flip side. Okay. Oh my gosh, Microsoft employees who just choked on their lattes. Yes, I've got a Tableau ad in my presentation. They paid me $50,000 to do this. No, not at all. I freaking hate these ads. And because I'm a data person and an Excel person, and we've got modern ad targeting and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, these things follow me around like the plague. Everywhere I go on the internet, I'm getting these ads, picking on Excel, but picking on a version of Excel that's at least 6 years old, okay? I've seen swearing by and swearing at Excel and all kinds of, they're really clever little ads but they drive me nuts. And they clearly work, otherwise they wouldn't be using them. So there is some pain point that they're addressing with Excel, right? They're speaking to something. And yet, right, the third most common button in all data apps of all types is export to Excel, yes? Right? Behind OK and cancel. Right? I know it's so hard when half the room heard the joke in the previous hour. Right? You guys should really, get out more, But here's a quote that you didn't get in the last session, okay? A Gartner analyst said this, and probably was immediately given a talking to. Right? Traditional BI tools are expensive extract, transform, and load systems for exporting to Excel. And folks, that's what I see over and over again. Really expensive BI system, and I go look over their shoulder. How are you using it? We're exporting it to Excel so we can do, right? These end reports, these end user-facing reports, they're supposed to be the end point, are just the jumping off point, okay? And something that I think I saw Chris come in, something that Chris Finland helped me understand about this and really internalize it. What would happen if these vendors that are picking on Excel so much, that also have the export to Excel button in them, what if we challenge them? Take that button out, right? Put your money where your mouth is, right? How long would they last as a software firm, right? If they didn't have the export to Excel button. It would be over in a heartbeat, okay? So this button is absolutely nothing short of an admission that these tools can't meet your needs, okay? Now, maybe they can meet some of them, right? But they are at least tipping their hat to, yeah, there's a place where we end, right? And in practice, the place where they end is everywhere, right? Like, that's what I see. We've done projects, I'm not even kidding, many projects where the original data sources are exports from other BI systems, like text files being exported from the UI of these other tools, being piled up in folders, right? Because they're just not getting what they need, right? You know, if I were dropped on the earth today with no knowledge, I would just think, I'd very quickly come to the conclusion that Cognos is just a data source for Power Pivot, right? All right, here's the second part of the secret, okay? And again, for those of you, pardon the repeat, okay? You know, I can go as a business person on the left, I can go to the people with the expensive tools, right? I can pay the crazy communication cost, or I can just use Excel, keep everything in my own brain, and just cycle and iterate internally, which is a hell of a lot faster communication process using my own neurons and all of my own internal nuance to get something done. And that is what squeezes the communication cost out of a project. Now, even if we just talk about regular Excel for a moment, old Excel, traditional Excel, okay, with all of its limitations, this is an absolutely devastating advantage over any other tool, right? The fact that it's got two things. Okay, Excel's got two things. Number one, well, actually, let's bring up all three of them. It's learnable by the business, okay? That's crucial. It's got to be learnable by the business, because if it's not learned by the business, then you've got the communication pathway, the really long loops, okay? And everything blows up. Got to be learnable by the business. Second thing, it's flexible. It can do anything. And most tools can't claim this. Excel is actually a programming language. It's a development environment even. It's just cleverly disguised in the Office suite, all right? So it is different even from most BI tools in that regard, is that it's kind of wide open. I know that has trade-offs, but it's important. It can do anything and it's learnable by the business. That means with Excel, you're almost never paying communication cost between biz and IT. And that is why Excel is so entrenched. That's why Excel is never going away, okay? Even old Excel, okay? Is because killing the communication cost, it doesn't matter how much better your software is. If one of them's not paying communication cost, it's going to win. 99-1, right? And all these years, it took me a long time to come around to this, right? Like, I just knew that people liked Excel. You always hear people, but my people like Excel. That's always the answer that's given. You know what? There's a reason why they like Excel, and it's those two reasons, okay? This is a dead simple scientific analysis of why Excel is so loved, why it's so entrenched, okay? Now, imagine the hybrids that last time, well, let's go to this one first. I misinterpreted, what's my next slide. So if Excel has this tremendous advantage with no communication cost, what's the problem? In some sense, there actually isn't one, okay? Because it's winning. Every day, all day, every day, Excel does the vast majority of the world's data work. And it's not even close. Everything else basically rounds to zero compared to Excel. So we could say that there's no problem. But it's also fair to say that the BI tools have been stingy. They've been hoarding certain capabilities for themselves and not sharing them with Excel for all these years, okay? There are some things that traditional Excel couldn't do that BI tools could. And if we really break it down and get scientific about it, there was actually no reason why they couldn't be put into Excel. There really wasn't. It just hadn't happened. Even at Microsoft, we had for a while this separation of the two teams, the Excel team and the BI team, okay? And like, no, the BI team says these are our features and Excel says these are our features. And there's still some turf war there, a little bit, I think, but not nearly like it used to be. So at a high level, I don't have time to drill into all 6 of these, really. At a high level, these are the 6 types of capabilities that were long missing from Excel that BI apps essentially had a monopoly on. And the latest wave of products from Microsoft, it's not like 100% of every one of these capabilities of BI tools has been completely losslessly translated into Excel. But I mean, seriously, like the majority of the capability, the majority of what you would need in each one of these departments is now in Excel. And it was already an unfair fight. It already didn't have the communication cost associated with it. And now it's got like, 95% of what the BI tools have been hoarding forever. And seriously, don't focus on the occasional thing where, it doesn't quite do row-level security. So what? Neither did regular Excel, right? How's file-level security working out for you, right? So these things are all in there now. And they're all in, the Power BI cousin to what I call modern Excel. Just to draw a contrast between, the pre-2010 and the post-2010. Not hoarded anymore. These engines, in particular, the DAX and M engines, they go by many names, unfortunately, because it is Microsoft. So we've got Power Pivot and Power Query. Well, Power Query is not Power Query anymore in 2016. It's Transform and Load, or it's on the Data tab, yeah. And in the Power BI desktop, they're not called anything. They're called, like Model and Data. But still learnable by Excel users. Another talk this morning, one of the case studies, the gentleman on stage was remarking like how awesome it was, how many of their Excel people were able to learn DAX. It actually is aimed at them. I don't think that they would have been particularly keen to learn DAX until they learned how to do things without DAX, right? And then someone comes along and says, hey, look, I can make the pain stop. And they're incredibly motivated learners at that point. Motivation is everything, okay? I have learned that motivation runs things much more than smarts, much more. And level of interest runs things much more than smarts. So still learnable by Excel users, that's modern Excel. We also have the Power BI desktop. The engines are the same, okay? Which means when you learn one, you're actually learning both. And you can load models from one into the other. I think it's still only one way, though. We need to get that straightened out, Microsoft people in the room. It's got to be a round trip, okay? I know it's hard engineering, but, suck it up. Let's do it. It's necessary. And then even the apex predator of the Microsoft BI world, SSAS Tabular, okay? I told people last night, like, you got to work the words SSAS Tabular into conversation as often as possible. It's very intimidating. You're going to win any argument, if you can just jargon them to death like this,
What's SSAS?
SSAS Tabular, SQL Server Analysis Services Tabular, AKA Big Power Pivot, okay? It looks the same. It looks so much the same that the professionals complain, hey, you didn't give us anything more than you gave the Excel people, okay? In terms of a development environment. Same formula, same relationships, same everything. Except that you can run, for instance, one of those projects that was listed earlier is running 3 billion rows of data, okay? It's every dollar in and every dollar out of one of the largest companies in the world over the last several decades, all modeled up and running on a 32 gigabyte virtual machine. And it would have run on a 16, but we were like, it's a little tight. Let's bump it to 32 because we couldn't go to 20. We only got 32 was our next step up, but it would have fit in 16 gigabytes, which was actually disappointing to the software sales team. Like, God, they're only going to run one server. All of that, we only get one server. Yep. Okay. So, how are we doing time-wise? 10 minutes, perfect. Okay, we'll have a little time for Q&A, maybe. All right. So, by the way, another thing that the abstract promised was handouts. Okay. So basically, these last two slides, if you want one, we've got 200 of these, so there should be plenty of them. But you can take these with you, sort of as a reminder, like a guide, okay, to the secrets. So most of this is recap, but some of it is new advice that didn't really fit anywhere else in the talk. Okay. So the one in the middle here in the center is the one that I forgot to put on these before I ran 200 copies of them, okay? That's what happens, right? You always miss one thing important. That's how you know you were ready to print them, is that you were down to one important thing not on there. So don't talk about the impossible. If you're trying to sell this to other people, don't go around talking like I just did. I'm telling you the truth, okay? But you want to win other people over, you can't just talk about it. You have to just go do it, all right? Go do the impossible and then show them. And as Tom this morning, he's so politically savvy, he's so awesome. He was telling the BI team the whole time, like, no, tell you what, this is just going to be the requirements, the really detailed, high-fidelity requirements that we're building in Power Pivot for this project. And then we'll turn it over to you, and you can implement it in MicroStrategy, just like you said you wanted to, right? And everybody went along with it. Everyone's cool, right? 2 years later, still not running in MicroStrategy, right? I don't think it ever will, because I don't think that it could be replicated. I really don't. It's too sophisticated to be done in that tool, right? So build it and show it, right? Talk is cheap, but you show something that is like you always get this reaction. How did you do that? That's when you know you got it. Okay. All right. So 99% of cost is communication. Forgive your people. Okay. Target the communication cost. That's where the savings are to be had. Shorten the loops. Right. You've got to get the business directly involved with the production, not just with the production of requirements. 3 different sales pitches for within your organization. Okay, if you want them to adopt Power BI Desktop, don't push Power BI Desktop on your Excel users. Okay, they have immune systems that will reject it. Okay? I don't think that Microsoft has really figured this out yet. Right? They own the world's data users already, right? But they're trying to sell them a new tool. I think the new tool is great. I think it's necessary for them to have it. I'm not picking on it. I'm just saying that the gateway drug to this stuff is modern Excel. Okay? And don't make the mistake internally of going to the Excel people and saying, hey, I've got yet another tool that's going to solve all of your problems and take you out of Excel. They've been sold that bill of goods 1,000,000 times. It's never been true. Okay? Don't climb that wall. Give them Power Pivot, modern Excel, and then 2 days later, show them Power BI and say, look at all these cool new charts you can do with that model you just built. That works. Don't go the other way, okay? But when you go to executives, right, they don't want to hear about your data tools and all that kind of stuff, right? You show them a shiny thing on a phone, okay? Like, ooh, look, dashboard, here's your dashboard, right? Like that. Right? There's a reason why all these vendors, including Microsoft, are now, everyone's selling from the visuals, right? Because the people that make the decision to buy things, unfortunately, aren't the ones that actually use them. Right? It's an arranged marriage, okay? The tools, okay, with the users, okay? And visuals tell a lie. They lie to you and tell you that data is easy. Data is never going to be easy. It always requires someone in there willing to get their hands dirty, okay? But it's very hard to sell that. Okay. So it's amazing how many places I have gone to do intensive DAX work and DAX training and things like that because someone showed some, absolutely rudimentary but very pretty dashboard on a phone or a tablet to an executive. They're like, go, right? And now we're DAXing, right? We're doing the hard stuff that, the sausage is being made behind the scenes. No one wants to hear about it. And then with IT, if you get IT resistance, tell them, oh, no, it's just SSAS tabular, okay? So whenever you want to take one of these things over, you can without having to convert it, right? We're playing by your rules, okay? You can dodge every objection like judo, okay? And it helps that it's all true, okay? That's always nice to be able to look at yourself in the mirror after you sell something. Yeah, all the Excel stuff, pretty much, I don't need to go through that again. The last slide here is about changing roles. Okay, and another thing that Tom emphasized this morning in his talk, and we didn't synchronize, is cooperation. Okay, like when a client, if it's IT that's bringing us in, we say, hey, look, you got to find some business people to bring in to the fold before we get there. That's your homework. okay? And if the business brings us in, we'd say the reverse. Get your, especially the database people, at least get one of them in there. We have a saying, we keep our friends close and our DBAs closer, okay? You can play amazing music together, okay? A database person and a Power BI or Power Pivot person. Neither one of you could ever achieve on your own. And it turns out that all that friction between business and IT, again, I've come to the conclusion over the years that that's just the software did it to us. There was no ROI, no incentive to cooperate, okay, with the old stuff. With the new stuff, there is. And it's the coolest thing, folks. One of the greatest things that we do is that we actually make people and help people get along better with this technology. I swear, people start to, like, most people actually want to do the right thing. Most people want to be valued. Most people want to play as part of the team. But because there was really no way to do it before, everyone sort of devolves into thinking it's the other person's fault. But we see over and over again people coming into the room in the morning or the first day we're there or whatever, and they're like very antagonistic. I don't want to be here. This sucks. The rogue BI tool coming in and ran on my parade. But then like halfway through the first day, they're part of the team. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, it's so cool to be able, even as IT, to be able to sell a project and say, look, I don't have to tell you about all this abstract plumbing I need to build that I can never explain to you executives why we need it. But we say, hey, look, see, dashboard, phone, right? You want this? You need a server, right? And it just gets green lighted, right? Appreciation, people like that. So data access and infrastructure, that IT's role, and that's more than enough work because you'll end up doing more data access and more infrastructure as a result of better ROI. More faucets means more pipes, okay? It does. It's not putting you out of a job. You collaborate with the business author, okay? The person who, and here's how you spot them today. They're the ones slinging VLOOKUPs and pivots all day, every day, okay? Those are the genetic markers. These people are easy to spot. You just run a survey in your company. Are you using VLOOKUP and pivot all the time? The people who say yes, those are your targets for teaching these tools, okay? You do not teach these tools to the entire business, just like the entire business didn't absorb pivot tables and VLOOKUPs. Right? These people exist already. They're like shadow IT producing information for their work group. They're outnumbered at least 15 to 1 in the business. Okay? They have a lot in common with IT, and those are your friends if you're on the IT side. And vice versa. If you're the VLOOKUP and pivot person, go find that IT database person and just start giving them a hug. They won't understand why. It'll be awkward. Okay? But it'll come together over time. All right? I think that's good enough. So how are we? I think we're probably exactly out. Look at that. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. All right? Because the next slide was wrong. I missed. I didn't expect this. I always run over. So this is good. Let's do some questions. Is it lunchtime now? Yes. All right. So I can hang out for a little while, and we can run questions a little long if you want. Don't forget these. Okay. If you want one of these, please come get one. Even if you're not asking questions, I'll make a few different piles so it's not quite so bottlenecky. But yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.